Happy birthday to Dr. Spice Meme Defender, Dr. Dylan 1017, and Mad Chad LOL. May this day be full of rad new figures and hilarious YouTube videos by people with purple logos. So I've been covering figures from my collection that I've been meaning to cover for a while now, and it's not like I have anything else completely new to talk about today anyways. So why not do one of the earliest figures I bought with the idea I'd do a review of it in mind? I didn't buy this just to do a review of it, but back in the day when I was planning on starting YouTube for the first time, I got this thing thinking how cool it would be to have it, and how cool it would be to review it, since I totally was about to start doing that, right? Like, I was not actually a few years out from starting this, right? And I have to drop a thanks to the power of the Prime's Optimus Prime for being as good as it is, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have gotten this. I absolutely would not have picked up the Shattered Glass version of the MP10, and I would not have picked up the regular version either, because that's about 2.5 times more expensive, considering I got this for $100. But because I got that, it freed me up to get this. That is the only true masterpiece scale Optimus Prime that fits with the MPs I have in my collection, because it's good enough to fit that role. You may ask, what about the Magic Square? That's an Ultra Magnus. What about the Transform Element? That's a cartoon edition. It doesn't exactly fit the aesthetic of the rest of my MPs. Well then, what about this figure I'm reviewing right here? Well, this is the evil version. So today we will be looking at the Shattered Glass Evil Optimus. For all two of you who don't know what this is, Shattered Glass is an alternate reality Transformers universe where the Autobots are evil and the Decepticons are good. Outside of a small amount of reading the wiki, Shattered Glass is probably the Transformers continuity I know the least about. I know some general stuff like what the colors are based off of, like how Hot Rod is supposed to look like Lemmy from Motorhead in homage to the evil Spock in the episode of Star Trek that inspired the Shattered Glass universe. I know that Skyflyer's colors are based off an animation error from G1 where in one shot he was given Skywarp's colors. Praise be upon his name, for we are all him. And I know that this version of Optimus is supposed to be a refined and intellectual type. Honestly, he kind of occupies the same headspace as Tarn for me. You know, I wouldn't exactly come to the conclusion myself that the opposite of normal Optimus is an intellectual and cultured individual. I kind of feel like that's throwing some weird shade at Optimus. I suppose I should just be grateful that America is the country that came up with the concept of Shattered Glass, because you know that if Japan came up with it, the pitch meeting would have gone something like this. Shenji! What is the exact opposite of Optimus Prime? A schoolgirl with magical powers and big tits! Exactly what I was thinking, Shenji! You get a raise! Don't lie, you know that's exactly how it would go. Because I've said it before, and I'll say it again, the Japanese do not get the Transformers, and they will cram in every Japan-specific trope until we put a stop to their reign of terror. Do you hear me, Japan? I'm on to you, and you will not get away with your crimes forever! Anyways, isn't it kind of quaint how people used to think of this as the pinnacle of Transformers? A near-perfect design for Optimus? It's kind of like when I was a kid and people would look at the Nintendo 64 and say the graphics could never get better because they were so lifelike already. And now you look at it and just go, wow, that's not even close. It's not ugly, but everything about it is wrong. The proportions of everything are way off. Almost nothing on him is the right size. It's not like he ends up a distended mess, but this just isn't how he's built. He's also kind of really knobbly, especially from the waist down, which is actually an area of the figure I would describe as being truly ugly. You could honestly separate the torso from the lower half and you'd have a decent representation of Optimus Prime, as the legs are what really drags this down. It's not like there's nothing wrong with the upper half, the arms aren't quite the right shape, the head feels very wrong for some reason, I mean everything is there, all the details seem right, and at the same time this feels wrong. And the ab grill is way too long. What's funny is that after getting back into collecting, this was probably my first real big contact with faux forming again, before I even knew it was called faux forming. The Power of the Primes figure doesn't count. The grill on this is fake, and I may not have known that this was a trend in Transformers design, and I may not have known why they did it, but all I did know was that I really didn't like it. On my first run-through of the transformation, I got to this part with a fake grill, and I was just so disgusted by the idea. It also took me like 2 hours to figure out how to transform this thing for the first time, partly because I was rusty, and partly because getting the fake grill to peg in on the underside of the truck is actually awkward enough that I thought I was doing something wrong when I wasn't, and I kept trying to find the part that didn't exist that I was missing. Before I get too far into this, I want to mention that the box art is fucking dope. It's easily some of my favorite box art ever put to cardboard. I won't dwell on this because I know you don't care, but seriously, look how cool that design is. He looks so evil! But that was all just kind of issues with this figure no matter what edition of it you get. But what about this edition? What is the Shattered Glass design bringing to the table? Not much, I'm afraid to say. I find the purple of this kind of makes it fade into the background of whatever shelf it's on, and the green windows don't quite pop to life. It's a very muted color palette. Though, I do much prefer the green on his crotch piece. This is a much livelier color, and the windows should have either been made out of this plastic, or if they were, whatever was done to make these stand out should have been done to those. The hole in the window is also really disappointing. It's just a tampo over clear plastic, and it's super fake looking. He has another tampo that I do actually like, but it's kind of hidden by the robot mode. His catchphrase, "Till all are gone," is tattooed on the inside of his shoulder. I love how deliciously evil that is. It's so silly, it's the best. I also think his gray biceps are unsatisfying in a weird way. They should have just been purple with the rest of the torso. It's also kind of disappointing that the white outside of the auto badge doesn't contour to the edges of the symbol itself, just being a block that the symbol was printed over. but at least the badge's face did get some cool metallic paint that I only realized existed while writing this review. I've had this figure for over 3 years, ladies and gentlemen. That really goes to show how little this whole deco pops. Quite honestly, this is a flat-out repaint, and it basically only makes the mold lesser. I want to have something nice to say about this. I don't want to just sit here and only trash it, because it's not bad, it just doesn't work at all. I don't know if it's just this thing's particular formulation of purple, and under my studio lights, this does actually hold my gaze a lot more strongly than just on my shelf, but when I put this next to the figures in my display, this just struggles to draw attention. Don't let me bury this though, I am actually kind of shocked by how much better this looks when separated from my other figures and under strong lighting. It kind of makes me regret all the crap I just gave it. At the same time, both of these perspectives are kind of true. On your shelf, this will languish. One-on-one, under good lights, and you will find it much more enthralling. Did anyone else ever think it was kind of strange that Evil Optimus just kind of added a bit more purple to his red paint, and that's what really visually differentiates them? Personally, I like to rotate one of his antennae back. It makes him look off kilter. It's funny. These are easily the tightest antenna of any Optimus I own by far. No other figure has half this hold. What can I say about this head sculpt? It's very much him, but at the same time, it's off. There just has to be something subtly misaligned in the proportions. Percents that add up to a strange feeling. If this looks fine to you, congratulations on your lack of OCD, I'm sure you live a much happier life. And I don't mean to crap on this like it's worthless or anything. It's an acceptable version of the design. It's not perfect, but nothing about it is offensively wrong or ugly. I suppose now, before we move on to the accessories, it's time to mention that this figure has an odd wibbliness to it. More than any other figure I own, this feels like it's unstable. It's not like it's actually prone to falling over, but every time I put it down, I have a moment of panic where I expect it to. I think it's just that his ratchets, while strong, have a lot of play between positions. This guy comes with more and better accessories than most others. Well, better by effort, if not by result. Case in point, his gun. It's ugly, it's weird, it's wrong, and it's floppy, and it's all of those things so it can be spring-loaded and fold up into his backpack. It also pegs into his hand like literal garbage and falls out all the time. He also got his laser axe, and this is made of like a hard soft rubber? I'm not quite sure how to describe this material. I really worry about breaking this thing off at this seam here though. And he comes with his trailer. Here's yet another data point that the Earthrise Prime's trailer is garbage, because this trailer probably cost more to make than the ER Prime figure itself, with his trailer included. And yet this whole package, figure, accessories, and all, still only cost double the Earthrise. This is an infinitely more full-featured accessory than the Earthrise, and honestly, it's barely a step behind the Optimus 3.0's trailer, so I mean, everyone already knew that was a total ripoff, but this just puts that into even more stark contrast. Also, the deco on this is very slick. Black and purple works way better than purple, mid-gray, and navy. No roller though, but still, yeah, top-notch accessories. Posability on this is definitely not what we've come to expect from modern high-end figures. Head has a lot of tilt up and down, and that is nice. It's about the only nice thing to say though, because the rest of this is pretty bad. Shoulders barely move out to the side, and you can sheet it to get more up, but there is just an unbelievably huge amount of range these are missing. It's got a backwards butterfly, as is basically standard on all Optimi. Elbows only bend to 90, tragic. The hands rotate and have a very mild amount of finger articulation. Legs actually have the most range going out to the side, and it just gets more depressing from there. Knees also only bend to 90, and they are mounted kind of high up, so it looks weird. Then he has ankle pivots and toe down, but no heel because that part's too loose to hold. So this guy's definitely a thing of the past on the posing front. As for transformation, this guy's actually insanely influential. It's kind of crazy to see just how much of this thing's design got carried over into newer versions of Optimus. Despite the fact that the transformation took a long while to figure out the first time I ran through it, I have to say that on all subsequent runs, it's a really fun little process. Though this is kind of the faux forming show, as not only does he have the fake grill, but the shins are kind of fake facades as well. I don't know that these are technically faux forming, as they don't look like much else in the alt mode, but they do feel wrong in the exact same way by having a completely cosmetic piece transform out like that. And you end up with this solid little Opti-Truck mode. If you are one of those people who really don't like it when Optimus's underwear ends up on the back of his alt mode, then you will have a problem with this. As for me, I am completely unbothered by that, and I'm quite happy with how this looks. It's got some panel lines, and the fact that the grille isn't chromed is kind of a bummer, but it looks solid enough, and it rolls great. Probably due to it having nice rubber tires, and these are chromed, so why not the grille? Now steel yourselves for this, cause it's gonna hurt. This doesn't have working windshield wipers. Tragic, I know. I kind of spent this whole review crapping on this thing, and I really didn't want to do that. I don't think this is really bad at all. Well, the articulation is definitely bad. It's not terrible, but it's not reaching good. It looks like a solid rendition of an interesting version of Optimus. It's got a great trailer, a solid axe, and a bad gun. It's got a deco that can really flourish under the right circumstances. It's made out of really nice materials with a lot of effort put in. It's cheap for what it was, and it has a really solid version of the alt mode. But the problem really boils down to that this is an outdated figure. This thing is a decade old at this point, which means it was designed even before that. This has been done so many times since, and each time the next version kept what was good about this while getting rid of what was bad or even less than perfect. At no point did that turn this into a bad figure, but it did leave it without a purpose. You want a more accurate looking Optimus? Those exist. You want a better posing Optimus? Those exist. You want a better transforming Optimus? Those exist. You want an Optimus with a better alt mode? Those exist. And sometimes those exist in all of those forms at once. Now, none of that means that this figure has no worth or value anymore. It's still a fun and interesting version of the character, but there are better options out there now. If you want this, you have no reason to stop wanting it, because it is good, but there are better Optimuses to want now. And that's not half of what I have to say, but it's enough of what I have to say. And I know you know what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.